Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world, and welcome back to Rebel, Reject, Create, the podcast all about our creative perspective on the world. And today, my guest is Mr. Jan Joubert, all the way from London, who is a tech entrepreneur and founder of the Tourism Exchange, software company Inda, as well as Rainmaker Solutions in London. Jan, welcome to the show.
Hey Dave, great to be here, man. And
Awesome.
good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. So, I said often to people that when I go into business environments and use this word creativity, I get a very strong reaction, and it's not a particularly positive one. Now, you're a businessman and a serial entrepreneur working at a high level across a range of industries. What is your take on the role of creativity in business?
It's interesting because I am a creative. And so at the center of anything I have ever started, and I'm pretty certain at the center of any of the great businesses that have started out there, for entrepreneurs, there is a central core of creativity in what we're doing. It will start with an idea.
Yeah.
It will start with a vision, something that we think can make a difference, can change the world, something that everybody will want. You don't get that purely by crunching the numbers.
Mm.
You don't get that from a textbook. You don't get that from a methodology on management consulting. You get that from being an ideas guy,
Right.
an ideas person, even. You get that from having the courage to have a vision and to take the risk of seeing it through. And in order to do that, you're going to have to get very creative all of the time. It, it,
All of the time.
it's not just about the creativity that embodies your idea. It's if you're going to take that idea to market, if you're going to inspire people to join you on that journey, if you're going to raise funds, you're going to hit hurdles.
Right.
Nothing goes in straight lines. No plan survives contact with the enemy. And any entrepreneur in the current climate will tell you that.
Yeah.
And so you better get creative, right?
Right.
It's not just creative in terms of the art sense, it's creative in terms of how am I going to overcome this? I've
Right.
got to think out of the box. The old tried and tested things that we've learned, from school to university in our businesses, they don't work anymore.
Mm.
You know, Technology is moving faster than it's ever moved before, and today will be the slowest it ever moves at from this point on, right?
Right. Yeah.
Nothing's slowing down. So you've got to think differently. You've got to think fast. You've got to think creatively. And the organizations that are keeping up, frankly, are creative.
Right. So what's going wrong then? How can it be then that so much of management and leadership is almost actively anti-creativity, as if it's a problem on the work floor?
Maybe those organizations aren't keeping up.
The
Maybe,
simplest answer
maybe,
is most often the truest.
maybe they're leaning into those old tried and tested, very outdated, you know, big
Right.
four, very large management consultancy mandates that a lot of them have grown out of.
Yeah.
They fall back on those tried and tested, but often we see them fail in businesses, approaches that they can all hang their hat on.
Right.
And a lot of that's just not keeping up. That's pretty much the business equivalent of an ostrich burying its head in the sand. So I don't know. I think the people who aren't able to apply creativity to what they're doing in a lot of large organizations, we're starting to see them fall behind the wayside.
Right. Right. A few sentences back, you used the word courage, that it takes courage to go out and do this stuff. I mean, that's not only got to do with the fact that sometimes in the halls of business, creativity is not welcome. There's something else going on there as well, isn't there? I mean, why do you need to be courageous to be creative?
Yeah. So in the current climate, if you're an entrepreneur, you better have some courage, I can tell you.
Just to do it. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not that easy. Things go well. Somebody lobs bombs at Iran, and things don't go so well. Things can change pretty quickly in the current climate when it comes to raising money,
yeah,
and when it comes to getting things done. Um, so
But
I,
this
I
idea
think
of taking an idea out into the world requires courage. Why?
I often see two types of people who, come to me for advice when they're starting businesses. You get guys that'll come to me and say, I've got an idea, and what I'm going to do is, while I'm being paid by somebody else, I can't stand this, by the way, while I'm being paid by somebody else, I'm going to use the money they're paying me and their time, and I'm going to test the waters with setting up something on my own. And what that says to me is I don't have the courage to go all in.
Yeah,
The guys who I have respect for go, do you know what? I've got an idea and I'm all in. I'm going to resign and I'm going to take this to market. And that generally means they've done the hard work to either put enough behind them to take the risk, they have punted an idea and they've got people to believe in them. And all of those things take courage to go out there put your idea, your baby out into the market and go and pitch it to people. That takes courage because you're going to get knocked back. And honestly, in fundraising, I think this is not anything new, but certainly my experience over the last 5 years has been you get a lot more no's than you get yeses. And
yeah,
every time it happens, you've got to dust yourself off, get back up there, and face up to the market again, and face up to the music, and that takes courage. And sometimes you're running out of cash, and you've got to go and put on a brave face, and you've got to find ways to overcome that and present this, the best version of yourself and what you're doing to the market. So it takes both courage and creativity.
yeah,
I think they go hand in hand, really. And even in the old world, in the corporates, in the corporate worlds, to put your head above the parapet, you've got a creative idea, and that you may get it shot off.
yeah.
I think creativity and courage are really linked.
Right. Yeah. I mean, aside from our current cultural situation, I think on a human level, right, to say I want to do things differently. I don't know if this is safe. No one's ever done this before.
Yeah,
There could
yeah,
be a dinosaur out there that's going to eat me up, but I'm going to try this anyway.
yeah. I think my wife and some of my employees might prefer it if I took the safer option more regularly, but
Yeah. But I
yeah,
like what you say about the fact that you're going to hit roadblocks. I mean, there were more than one record labels that said no to the Beatles.
yeah, yeah.
That didn't stop them.
Yeah, trust me. You go and ask any entrepreneur that's really made it out there, um, and they'll tell you the amount of times they got rejected.
Right.
So it's a lot of this is about experimentation, and if you're creative, the one thing that you understand is everything that you try doesn't work. If it did, life wouldn't be fun, right? We and some ideas are terrible. But that's okay because you're pushing forward the whole time and you're learning what works and what doesn't work. So actually, in all of my companies, and I like to see this rewarded in very large organizations as well. The organizations that do really well, they understand that you have to have, in order to be able to iterate and keep up with the rapid pace of change in the markets, you have got to iterate. And
Hmm.
to iterate, you have to experiment. And that
Right.
means you've got to accept that failure is part of the process. And
Right.
you have to almost reward failure. Now, I don't mean bad practice, laziness,
Yeah. Yeah.
sloppiness that results in failure. I mean pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
experimenting, not getting it quite right, having to start again. And when that culture of experimentation and accepting that you've got to fail in order to move forward is accepted within an organization, they fly. They absolutely fly
Right.
because that is the heart of iteration. They take smaller steps, but they take lots of steps and they move quickly and they experiment, fail, experiment, succeed, experiment, succeed, fail, succeed, succeed, succeed. And what they're doing is they're actually creating a culture of success. And a culture of success allows for creativity, ideas, failure. But it also takes rigor, discipline, and good old established business practices built around that
Right.
creativity and those ideas, right?
Right. It's a real rope walk, basically, isn't it? I mean, you've got to have some rules and guidance and best practices in place, but if you're totally bound to that. But
Yeah, you've got
so
to be flexible, right? You've got to create
yeah.
a framework of ideas that gives you a pathway, and then in that pathway, you don't want to hire bright people and then think for them. It's just such, and so many organizations do that. They go out there and they hire the brightest people they can find, and then they go, "Oh no, 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 no! Oh, were you thinking for yourself? Naughty!"
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
So culture, workplace culture, entrepreneurial culture, is that actually the most important factor at play here?
I wouldn't say it's purely entrepreneurial. I've seen lots of large organizations that do this brilliantly, right?
Mm,
I mean, Apple do this brilliantly, right?
mm,
They're constantly pushing the boundaries with the things that they come up with. And when they didn't, things didn't go so well. And when they
right.
did, geez, things go brilliantly. And organizations have stages to this. I've seen Microsoft do this well. I've seen
Yep.
Microsoft do this badly. I've seen IBM do this well. I've seen IBM do this badly, right? So organizations, and you'll have pockets in organizations that do it really well and pockets in organizations that don't do it really well. What you want to get in an organization is a culture where this is accepted. And that's the hard part, right?
Yes. How do you do that?
One of the things my wife, who runs Rainmaker for us, does brilliantly. We were a digital transformation company, really, really clever, right? We thought, I'm really, because we helped come up with the methodology, we were brilliant, right? We're going to help your company go and take on digital transformation and actually succeed.
Mm,
Way over 70, 80% of the time, it fails to achieve the outcomes you want. Christina joined the company and she went, wow, geez, do you know how difficult it is to tell anybody that they want to start digital transformation? It's fraught, it's expensive, it's difficult, and you just resistance. People have got, by the way, change resistance in organizations because they're so sick and tired of bad change being forced on them, right? That also stifles creativity.
hmm
When you don't listen to your people, you are stifling creativity.
Right.
And in my experience, the people who know what needs to change in an organization are the people working in the
Yeah.
organization, right? And so, what Christina did brilliantly is she starts the change process in the product and services space. Why is that important? Because that's what is facing the client.
Yeah. They're in
So it's
contact.
massively customer centric. So you teach a company how to change and iterate and transform around products and services, then the stuff that you want to achieve organizationally around the technology, around the culture, follows suit because you've anchored it into a North Star, which is massively market facing.
Right.
But if you start with that digital transformation space and you start with the technology, or you start with the culture, or you start with the organization, you're literally polishing the inside of the bowl. And I've seen so many of those transformation programs, which is literally where creativity comes to die,
Yeah.
implemented by the big management consultancies that have got a predetermined template of failure.
And use AI to write their reports currently, I saw in the
That
news.
was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to mention names on this one? Yeah. One
Right. I
of
mean, talk about creativity having crawled up in a hole and died. I mean, what an admission of absolute failure of internal process and imagination.
I mean, AI is brilliant, right? AI is absolutely brilliant if you use it the right way and if you're creative in its use.
Yeah.
And also if you talk to your clients about how you're going to use AI to get the most out of what you're delivering for them, how it's going to save time, money. But I think what you're seeing there is some good old healthy laziness and greed. So we're going to charge you the same.
Yep.
We're going to use AI to do what our consultants did, and then we're not even going to read what it produced. Hello, disaster. And where's the creativity in that? They can't even be creative enough to try and cover up how lazy they were.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't have taken much, right? They could have just hired in a
Just maybe
proofreader.
get somebody to read what was going to be
Yeah.
produced.
Would have still been 1/10 of the man hours they were invoicing for.
Yeah, just they could have even got an intern to read that and go, just make sure this is in English.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of AI
Yeah.
speak. All right.
Oh
So,
dear.
but okay. So, I mean, I'm enjoying this idea now that what you're saying about the current Rainmaker process is very much bottom up, not top down. So, what role does leadership then play in maintaining a creative culture, an innovation culture?
So That's actually quite a, so actually, let's use Rainmaker as an example. For quite a while, I said to everybody, guys, we're the experts in digital transform. We're doing digital transformation, right? This is the way we do things. And really, it was Christina who said to me, you should really practice what you preach. And I was like, this will be interesting. And, she was so on the money, she used all the phrases I use with businesses, don't polish the inside of the bowl, etc., on me. But that's a perfect example. No matter how good you are, no matter how ahead of the game you are, you will get stale.
Yeah, it'll
And
catch
if
up.
you do not change, if you don't, I'd hire the brightest and youngest people you can, and then I'd listen to them.
Mm.
And honestly, I tell you, we could have done this podcast 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and I would have told you that's exactly what I do. And the youngest, brightest people working for us at that time would have gone, yeah, I'm not sure Jan's listening to us.
Mm.
So
Ouch.
you have to, you have to constantly evaluate, and you've got to have a balance between what you've built that's working and what to listen to about what's coming next. Because you know, there's a fine line between disruption, creativity, noise, and you've got to use your intuition.
Yeah.
Not listening is lazy. Not acting is lazy, um, or complacent at least. You've got to be open to challenge. Leadership teams have constantly got to be open to challenge. If you are still doing the same thing in a year's time that you were doing a year ago and you think it's okay, if you're still doing the same thing in 5 years' time that you were doing 5 years ago and you think it's okay, you're deluding yourself.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
And honestly, so all I did was delude myself for a bit. The company was growing, everybody loved us, thought we were great, but we were becoming irrelevant. And that's why you have to listen. And the thing is, I, I hate to admit it, I didn't make it easy for that the voices to be heard by the people who I had hired and brought into the company because they were brighter than me, because they were more creative, because their finger was more on the pulse.
Yeah.
And Christina's challenge will be finding the next generation of people within the company who are going to be telling her what to do and how to change.
Right.
And it's that cycle, right? So, and I actually think she understands that a lot better than, even though you would have described me as somebody who understood that really, really well. I'd have come into your business and told you this, not a whole period, but it's the cobbler's children, right?
Yeah.
You have got to take your own medicine. And I think in organizations who don't understand this, go and talk to people who truly understand it. And if they tell you that they always get it right, they're lying.
I like it.
Nothing's smooth. Yeah.
Nothing smooth. All right, Jan. A quick summation then to close up with. The world is changing at light speed. What we did yesterday isn't relevant tomorrow.
Mm.
What can we do in order to make sure that we can, I mean, forget success for a moment, that we can just stay in business and be productive,
Yeah, you better think out the box.
right?
And that means I think being creative requires discipline.
I'd agree with that.
You said to me once years ago when I thought, Dave's an author, maybe I'll be an author. And you said you better write every single day, and it takes a discipline.
Yeah.
Guess what I never did? I never wrote every single day, and I'm not an author.
Here we go.
It takes discipline, right? If you're going to be creative, and that discipline, it's not believing your own hype.
No.
You've got some of the answers, but you better listen to the people around you. And you have to surround yourself with people who are going to constantly push the boundaries. And you can't forget that. So when it works, you can't forget that you got there by pushing the boundaries. So
Right.
you better have a culture that remains open to pushing those boundaries because people tend to be creative in bursts in organizations.
Yeah.
I'd say have the discipline of being creative.
Brilliant. Jan, thank you so much. That's awesome insight to round off with no holy cows. So thanks for coming on the show and sharing your insights. It's been real.
Pleasure.
And thanks to all
Absolutely.
of you who've been listening to us having this rather casual chat. if you're interested in Jan Joubert's work, please check out the show notes. We've got the links to his sites and his socials, because he's all over TikTok and Snapchat and so.
I
And
think so.
don't forget, there's new episodes coming every second week. So subscribe, sign in, come back, and let's continue to make the world a better place by making more people more creative.